Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for listening. My name is Andrew Bauer, and I am the Executive Pastor of Team Development, and I am joined by...
My name is Brynn, and I'm on staff. I work with anything related to children, and I have 4 children of my own.
Yes, and I forgot to say that we have 3 kids. Listen, I do. We find ourselves right now in a time of unprecedented trouble as we are faced with a global pandemic, and we want to take a few moments to begin a conversation about the role we have as parents in the lives of our children as we go through this time. And to kind of give us a framework, Paul Tripp in his book Parenting wrote that parenting is not first about what we want for our children or from our children, but about what God in grace has planned to do through us in our children. So Brynn, we have for the last couple of weeks been receiving questions and thoughts from parents, and we're just going to ask you to speak to a few of the questions that we've received. First question that we got was, as we process with our kids what is going on in the world around us, what would you encourage us to focus on in these conversations?
Our primary focus would be to keep the statement from Paul Tripp in mind that Andrew has already said, which is that we're really viewing this as an opportunity for what God in grace has planned to do through us in our children. And another way to say that is that the most important thing right now is the ability that God has given you to remain connected to your children, and that connection will never be based on the behavior of your children, how clean their room is, if they wake up right when their alarm goes off, or if they snooze 3 times, or if they do their spelling lesson without complaining, or even do it before they're even asked, right? That connection to our children is based on one thing, and that one thing is grace. And the reason why we think that is because that is our connection point to God. God's grace in our lives, not our behavior.
Love it. What are like some practical ways that we move towards our child who's hit snooze so many times or is having a bad attitude while doing the schoolwork that they now have to do at home? What does grace practically look like in those moments?
That is the question, isn't it? That's what we're all trying to figure out, and we're doing it in a way and in a time of history that just already feels so sensitive and unfamiliar. So I am so drawn to this moment for us as parents. God is with us in this, and so what does it look like? It looks like unusual, perhaps, and first time structures in our home where it's going to feel like the potential to fail is strong, or the uncertainty as to whether or not success is possible. We don't know. It will mean we'll have to rewrite things. We think it'll work this one day, but by the time we get to Thursday, we have to redo it all because we realize it's not helping with this certain part of our household. So a lot of flexibility and a lot of time, just giving our whole time to figuring out a new rhythm for our families, and where we have to be good listeners, stay present with our children, and really be creative with some of our problem solving. But what I would say, practically speaking, is being able to work out with our children a real point of communication and conversation and listening with them, so that when they're coming to us and saying, I don't care, I don't want to wake up at 7, I can't do it, I'm too tired, we're not immediately moving into that with our own frustration and the resistance that we're perhaps perceiving from our children, but being willing to understand, what is it really like for an 8-year-old to want to get more sleep? And what could be going on in the life of that 8-year-old that sleep seems to be offering them? And is there something that they're desiring from sleep that really is valid, that as a family we could actually all be desiring together and seek to maybe incorporate more of whatever that is into our home, to humanize our children and where they're at in these moments, and yes, provide structures, and yes, have appropriate boundaries and discipline, but to see this as an expression of where our children are at in their lives and an opportunity for us to connect with them in it.
So what I'm hearing you saying is just grace can look like having an attitude that's very curious and a perspective that's curious to understand what our kids are saying. And it's so easy as parents to fall into this perspective of my role is to be more of a corrective person and role in their life to correct behavior that doesn't align with my desires or my plans or expectations for the morning or the day. But to be curious to understand, to listen, and to want to know what's going on inside the heart and mind of my child when it feels like rebellion or it feels like going against authority, but maybe there's something to it that I can discover and understand in there.
Curiosity, such a good word.
Okay. Thanks for that. I appreciate that. Another question that a parent sent in is, some of our children are feeling uncertain, worried, and fearful. How would you recommend we process these feelings with them?
Mm-hmm. Anytime a child is coming to us expressing how they're feeling, it is a gift. A gift, gift, gift. They are saying to you, I want to be close to you. I want you in my life. I may not know exactly how to say it just like that, but when they're telling us how they feel, they're inviting us in. So if you have a child who is articulate, just like this little guy I was walking by yesterday in my neighborhood, I've never met him before, but I walked by, I said, hey, how are you feeling about your new life? He's like, I hate it. I hate everything about it. I said, oh, does that mean that you really like going to school? He said, no, it doesn't mean that at all. I hate going to school, and now that I'm home, I still have to do school. There's not one thing about my life that I like, right? I appreciated that. He's being very straightforward with me. But do you see how even at the beginning of that conversation, I'm interpreting what I think he's saying? And he was able to clarify for me just in that little 15-second interchange. And so what is it that when our children are expressing themselves to us, we're able to see that as them saying, draw near to me, Mom or Dad. And that we would validate what they're saying. And if they're saying that they are feeling afraid, that we do not need to talk them out of those feelings. And if they're saying, I'm afraid of getting sick, we do not need to say, oh, well, you'll never get sick, right? We don't need to speak to things that we don't know, because we can speak to things we do know. And what do we know? That we know that we're going to stay connected to our children. We know that we're going to go through this together. We know the endless lists of promises of God that you can be writing out as a family, or pick one to recite every day to each other. So we're validating children in any expression of feelings that they have. And if you have a child who doesn't quite express their feelings as openly, there are little conversation prompts that you can use to encourage that, draw that out in them. A really common one that in my childhood and one that my husband and I use in our home is the scale of 1 to 10. Scale of 1 to 10. 1 is not afraid at all. 10 is really, really scared. How afraid are you today? And children can try to put numbers to that. And you can ask that on and off throughout the week and see what makes it change and understand more of the details that goes into that number.
So what I'm hearing you saying is just the ability to really repeat back to our kids what they're saying and not be too quick to speak to it, but to repeat back and explore. Mm-hmm. And in that exploration is where grace happens with our kids, where we begin to understand what's happening with their fears or what it is that's going on. Because part of fear is a good thing. And we are designed to fear God and to trust in Him and be dependent on Him. But then when we focus too much on fear, it can lead us to worry and to other extremes that aren't healthy for us. But to embrace the part of fear that's there, but then also to feel the freedom as a parent to let our humanness shine, and meaning like we don't have all the answers. And to admit that to our kids is such a gift to them, because that helps us all remember that we need to go to God. And we need to lean on Him and trust Him in these times of uncertainty that even I as a parent have, and I don't have all the answers. And that's good for me to acknowledge that to my kids. So I appreciate that freedom to not have to have answers to everything, to not have to speak to everything, because so many times I feel like I need to, because I feel like that will give them more solid ground to stand on. And sometimes it's just really shaky ground, because I'm just making up answers, or I'm just speaking to it quickly to kind of deal with it and move on, instead of taking time to let the foundation of trusting in God in the midst of anything in life to really build there. So I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Another question that someone asked spoke to is just so much of our life has been removed or canceled. How can we establish or reestablish safety in our families in the midst of so much change?
That's a good question. So safety, if we're understanding that our main goal is to stay connected to our kids through grace, then having home environments that help support that is really important. And the things that help with safety are making sure that connection to our children, if broken, through frustration or failures that we've made as parents or our kids, there's an easy path for that to be rebuilt. And that knowing that the things that you now have to accomplish with your children at home in regards to their schoolwork, whether that's something you had already been doing or if it's brand new to you, that forward progress, getting the things done on your list that is important to their education, it really, in the long run, will not help your children learn if there's a high-pressure, stressful environment in our homes. And I've learned through failure. I've learned this through failure, and so many times with my own children, where I'm a task-oriented person. I really enjoy discovering things together with my kids, and I easily can put the discovery of new information ahead of the connection that I have with my kids. And our brains are wired to take in new information and allow it to be enjoyed and sift into meaningful, lasting places when we feel safe. Learning really, truly, at its truest level cannot be done in an unsafe environment. So in our homes, if we can have this priority of setting aside our to-do lists in order for there to be secure relationship, it in the long run will actually help us accomplish more because we will be together and united as a family.
And I appreciate that, because when we feel safe, we know that we belong. And right now, in a time where we can all feel alone, we're just looking for a place to belong and a place where we can fit in. And even as it's just not normal for everyone to be in our home every day because we can't even go to work, to be able to know that, hey, we can belong because I know that I care about my child and my child cares about me, and that creates a connection. And then through that, I'm going to try to care for my child the way that my child is wired and meet them right where they're at. And then through that, remind them that we're in this together and that we're in this for the long run. We're not going away. And because we have a God who's faithful and who's with us, and there is hope in him. And so just having those types of conversations that create safety and create belonging are so key during this time where it can feel so isolated and so alone. Our kids can't even see their friends, you know, and so it's just, they miss seeing their friends at school, and that's just so hard. So I'm grateful for that framework of trying to help our kids feel safe and that they belong in our family, even in this time of uncertainty, because we're in this together and we're going to meet each other right where we're at. It's so good. Another question we have for you is that for some of our families, we are facing moments of boredom to moments of feeling overwhelmed. What are ways that we can talk to our children about what we are feeling and also explore what they are feeling?
So another principle of Paul Tripp's is that of control. The goal of parenting is not control of behavior, but rather heart and life change. And I think that helps here. So if our child is bored and we can get involved in that boredom with trying to come up with 10 things for them to do. And I think there is a very appropriate time and place for that conversation. That makes a lot of sense. There's also an opportunity to understand more about what that boredom feels like to them. Perhaps they're saying they're bored because they're a highly extroverted personality, and to not have seen any of their classmates and play games at recess that they're used to playing really is causing them to feel a sense of just not sure who they are right now. And that is something that you might be able to discover with that child of yours over the course of the next couple weeks if you continue to have conversations about what does this child mean when they say they're bored. And they're probably not going to know how to articulate that for a while, and that's okay. But over time, you can discover what's happening inside that child. So that coming up with the 10 things to do is really great, but you also want to know, man, what comes alive in my child when they're out at recess with their friends, right? That right now they don't have, that my child is missing, and I can somehow now be involved in that with them. It's a whole new conversation, a whole new dynamic to your relationship, and it's that opportunity to express belonging and connection that the simple idea of being bored presents.
I love that. And again, we just hear again what it means to move with grace is to meet the person right where they're at and to realize that we're not in control and that God is, and to trust him in that process. I really love that. And just seeing the heart of our kids is so important to do. Right now it's so easy with so much information coming into us that it just feels like I don't have time to even think about what is going on in the heart of my kids. And I just appreciate the encouragement to take time to focus on each of my kids' hearts and try to meet them wherever they're at and love them and walk beside them as we discover together what God has for them as they go through this. Thank you for these words. Thank you for the encouragement, Brynn. I really appreciate it. And thank you for listening today. Please know that we are in this together and we are praying for you as a church. We believe in you as a parent. As you need things, as anything comes to mind, please reach out to us, send us questions, send us thoughts. We want to connect with you and care for you as we go through this time. We know that God is on the move. We know that he is faithful and all-powerful. We trust him in this. There is so much uncertainty, so many things that we're wrestling with, but we know that God is good. And in this wrestling, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We want to talk to you. We want to support you and care for you. Thank you for listening.